Welcome back to Dark Souls 2. We're going to finish up in the Undead Crypt today. Thanks for the extra views on the video uploaded last week. Much appreciated after the comments I made at the beginning of that video last week. Okay, so when you first make your way into the crypt, you're going to encounter this undead labourer wielding a torch. And he's a friendly, unaggressive labourer who actually wants to follow you around. Don't allow him to do that, kill him. You'll see why soon. So you can see that we're being bombarded by a hex called Affinity that's been cast by the Lydia witch that's further up ahead. And to be honest, you're better not sniping these witches from distance. You're actually just better approaching them and taking them out as quickly as possible. The Hex Affinity doesn't actually do that much damage for some reason or other. It just doesn't. Okay, so when you enter this room, you're going to encounter 3 Lydia witches and a number of undead labourers, and these guys are aggressive. They're out to get you, so just make sure you take them out. The Lydia witches can also cast things like Lightning Spear. They can also cast like a Poison Mist, and they've got a couple of other tricks up their sleeve. One of the pyromancies as well, like, what's it called? The one where like flames erupt out of the ground. So yeah, you just want to basically go up and take them out as quickly as possible. I've taken, I think, 1 or 2 of them out from distance and just skipped ahead. And be careful as well, there's big pots of like oil in this room as well. Like there's one there in front of us. And obviously you can, if your weapon sparks against the stone or whatever, you can cause them to explode. So we've been given a warning here by the crypt janitor. That's essentially what he is. His name's Agdane, the grave warden Agdane. And what would have happened if you hadn't killed that undead labourer with the torch would be that he would walk through here following you, and it would aggro Agdane and these grave wardens. The last time we seen grave wardens was in Earthen Peak. Okay, so let's speak to Agdane.
I am Agdane, guardian of the crypt.
Agdane has a lot of exposition and lore that I'm not going to get involved in or show in this video. He basically explains the purpose of this crypt, gives you a bit of history about it, explains his dislike of light, makes connections to Gravelord Nito, and he also explains that Vendrick is further ahead in Undead Crypt, King Vendrick. He's also a vendor. Agdane's a vendor, and he's got some good items. He's got the insolent set and the shield, and I think the shield increases your stamina regen. Okay, so take your kit off and go and put on the silver cat ring. Then where we just fought the royal guards, you can fall off the edge and you'll come to this discreet area where you'll get a soul of a great hero, which I think is 20,000 souls. And then behind you you've got these ladders which take you further up. And at the top we've got an undead labourer and a treasure chest. And inside this treasure chest we've got quite an interesting item. We've got the crushed eye orb, and that should remind you, especially when you read the description, the crushed eye writhes unsteadily in search of dishonourable miscreants, I think it was, and that should remind you of the black eye orb that we used to invade the world of Lautrec, or world of the Guilty, or whatever it said in Dark Souls 1. In Dark Souls 1 the language used is quivers, it quivers in your hand or whatever, in the main cathedral of Anor Londo. In this version it says it writhes. And And yeah, if you want to use that item, go from Medulla to Hades Tower of Flame, and you'll see how that item works. Okay, so we're in here. This is Undead Ditch, and there's a bonfire off to the left here. I would recommend going to that bonfire first. You can see that there's infinitely spawning undead labourers, and you could also see that there was a big like tombstone or headstone, gravestone, whatever you want to call it, and behind it there was like a floating enemy wearing like a cape or whatever, or a robe. That's actually a Lydia Pyromancer, and they are in number, they are very dangerous. So what you want to do is you want to smash that gravestone, headstone, statue, whatever you want to call it, to stop the Lydia Pyromancer from spawning. When you go close to the gravestone, the headstone, they spawn and they aggro. But if you destroy that headstone, they don't spawn again for the rest of the playthrough. So I've written here that they're fast, deadly, and even deadlier in numbers. So that would be my recommendation. Use something like the Giant Club, an Ultra Greatsword, or Power Stance, you know, your favourite weapon or whatever, and take those tombstones out as quickly as possible. The undead labourers that infinitely spawn aren't a problem, but the Lydia Pyromancers are. They also aggro if they hear a bell, and we'll come to that bell later, but yeah, we'll talk about it later. Okay, so behind me where I just took out that tombstone with the Lydia Pyromancer, there was a set of ladders. Yeah, over there, there's an item as well. So pick up the item, and I think there's an item there, but there's ladders, so come up those ladders and you'll get to another Lydia Witch. Take her out as quickly as possible. So there you go, she was using one of her pyromancies. And we actually get a good drop here. We get the Black Witch's Staff and the Dark Quartz Ring +2, which I'm not really interested in. But the Black Witch's Staff is a really versatile catalyst. We get Dried Fingers in this treasure chest, Bonfire Ascetic and a Twinkling Titanite. Dried Fingers just reset the invasion timer, so it increases your chances of being invaded again. So the Black Witch's Staff, like I say, it allows you to cast hexes, sorceries. What else does it? Sorceries, miracles, and hexes. That's what I'm thinking of. And you can also actually use it. I use it with my my caster build, and you can actually use a Black Witch's Staff to strike enemies as well. So it's so versatile. Bracing Knuckle Ring +2 slows down equipment degradation. You're going to get a lot of wear and tear, especially in the new DLC area. There was many times I was walking through there and you needed repair powder or whatever, and so, you know, some weapons degrade very quickly, so something like the Bracing Knuckle Ring +2 can help. So as soon as you come into this room, you come up those stairs, come into this room, you're going to be invaded by the Nameless Usurper. And some people believe this is Lycia of Lindelt. Remember we met Lycia in Hades Tower of Flame, and she's a swindler who uses an appeal to religion on her marks to get money off them or souls or whatever. But some people believe it's not Lycia of Lindelt. Some people just, you know, it's wearing the Lycia robes or something like that, this NPC, but it's not necessarily Lycia. And before you leave this room, you've got these wall warriors, I think they're called, and they've reused an asset from Dark Souls 1. Remember in New Londo when you took those ghosts out, you had that sound effect, and it's the same one. I think it's just a reused asset rather than any kind of connection. You can see as well there's a hidden wall in this room. Inside that hidden wall there's a very good item, a good offensive item. You've also got 2 wall warriors in here, so just be careful. I think you got the Bracing Knuckle Ring before these warriors, wall warriors, just because you're obviously striking the wall quite often with your weapon, which might, I don't know, I might be wrong about this, but it might increase the amount of wear and tear in your weapon more quickly than it would normally. So we get the Avalon and some bolts, and the Avalon obviously is a rapid fire crossbow type weapon, and it's worth upgrading to its maximum level. The only problem with the Avalon is it was good at one point, but like they've changed the mechanics of it now, so that once it fires, you slow down for quite a long period of time before you can't move very fast, and it leaves you very vulnerable to attack. So we've got a wall up here. You can see the wall behind me. So where do we go from here? There's a wall. So it's a bit confusing about where you go from here. And then you look round and you think, wait a minute, that's not a wall. That's actually 2 enemies. So these enemies are Imperious Knights. Yeah, Imperious Knights. And they wield shields, that's their weapon. These great shields, these massive hunks of metal. Massive hunks of metal? Massive chunks of metal. The shields are named Orma and Reeve, and they're the only shields in the game that you can power stance. You can actually, these enemies have the possibility to drop the shields. One goes in the right hand and one goes in the left hand. I think the Orma shield is right hand and the Reeve shield is left, or vice versa. Not that it matters. And we were lucky actually, we got the shield. That was what the drop is in front of us. His AI obviously messed up there, or he just couldn't see us from behind his big shield. I think you can just use it as a normal shield as well and then have a weapon in the other hand. So they needed their crush their foes until their corpses were needed beyond recognition. The engraving depicts 2 messengers from the hereafter who welcome the recently dead and judge their deeds in life. And this room we're about to enter, this is a very challenging room. You fall through this pit in the ground, or hole in the ground. What I would recommend is actually not engaging with the enemies in this room. I would recommend leaving, go up to your left, not there, not straight ahead, go up to the left and leave this room, go left, and there'll be a lever that you can pull. That'll drop down like a pathway that will allow you to go and reach the bonfire and give you a shortcut back to here, so you don't have to take on the Imperious Knights if you die. This is the bell I was talking about that aggroes all these Lydia Pyromancers. And once you're trapped in a dead end like this with them, you're going to have to do something very special to survive. Because they can cast multiple different sorceries, hexes, things like that, pyromancies. Can they do hexes? Maybe not hexes, but definitely sorceries and whatnot, and pyromancies, and they can just take you out very quickly. Plus their thrusting sword is very quick and dangerous. So my recommendation is to, like I say, come down this pathway, go to the left, go up, drop the lever, drop the path, make sure you've got the shortcut open to the bonfire, and then come back in here and take out 1 tombstone at a time. Go back and heal somewhere, and then come in and just keep repeating that process until you've cleared the area. And I think there's like 5 headstones or tombstones in here. And not only do you have to deal with the Lydia Pyromancers, but you've also got to deal with these undead labourers as well, who can be a bit of a pain in the bum here. And there's some that ring the bell as well, which is annoying. You can't unfortunately destroy the bell, as far as I'm aware. You can destroy the headstones that the Lydia Pyromancers spawn from, but not the bell. They've got every kind of attack conceivable, you know, if you get close to them, if you trap them. They've got pyromancies to erupt all around you. They can use their thrusting sword. They're pains in the asses, that's what they are. And there's lots of different wee treasures to collect around that room in there with all those pyromancers. I'm not going to show me collecting them all. What I'm going to show you though is the fact that there's a Pharaoh's Lockstone contraption in here. And there's a hidden wall as well in here. So you can see this strategy works quite well. And the large club and the giant club are so useful. So many times I've been in situations where a sword or something like that just hasn't, you know, hasn't worked very well. Especially in the DLC recently actually. I've been playing the DLC in New Game Plus, and the enemies really hit hard in the DLC, especially the bosses. And you guys will be aware of this, the fact that there's two pathways in the DLC. There's a normal kind of single player pathway, and then there's another pathway that is designed for co-op play, where you can summon, you know, your buddies or phantoms or whatever, or NPCs to help you. And that pathway is really challenging if you try it single player. Really challenging. So anyway, so we would use the Pharaoh's Lockstone, and that gives you access to the opposite side of the room. This gives you access to this treasure chest. You get Allenford's staff and the Great Lightning Spear. And at one point the Great Lightning Spear was so powerful. In the recent patch that was delivered with the DLC, they've reduced the amount of casts. It used to be, I think you got 10 or 11 casts or something like that with the Great Lightning Spear, but now you only get 3, and the damage output seems less, so kind of not that great. That was the path up there to the left that you go up to drop the pathway down using the lever. Don't forget to get this treasure chest. Allenford's staff, I don't know much about it. All I know is that some people consider the Staff of Wisdom and the Sunlight Staff, I think it is, to be better in certain situations. That information might be incorrect, but that's what I read before I made this video, or this commentary. So here we go, we dropped the path. Down to the right is an interesting wee detour. You can actually light a sconce or some kind of contraption, and it allows you to shed light throughout the Undead Crypt. Kind of like what you had in No Man's Wharf with the Pharaoh's Lockstone contraption that lit the big massive chandelier thing. So drop down, use your silver cat ring if you need to. The sconce is the shape of like a woman's statue, feminine statue, and if you look to your left and behind you, you'll see that these cauldrons of fire lighting up. And there's some items to pick up in that room to the left there as well. I think it's Soul Vessel? Bonfire Ascetic? Soul Vessel, okay. And then you just take the ladder and it takes you back up to the Undead Ditch bonfire. And Soul of a Hero. So pick up lots of souls here. And that's us mostly finished with the Undead Crypt. Now all we need to do is go and finish the level. It's a short area. So the first thing you want to do is drop down under the stairs. You're going to come down these stairs, go to the left or right. If you don't, there's an undead labourer down there who will ring the Bell of Awakening. Wonder if that's got any connection to the Bell of Awakening that awoke Frampt in Dark Souls 1. Remember we had to ring the Bells of Awakening, one above, one below. One in the church, Undead Parish Church, and one below in Blighttown, or whatever, yeah, Blighttown, the Great Swamp or whatever. So if he rings that bell, it spawns Lydia Pyromancers along the corridor, and as well as taking on these royal soldiers, or whatever they are, royal knights, you also have to take on, is it royal guards, that's it, and you also have to take on Lydia Pyromancers at the same time, which you don't want to do. So just make sure you kill that undead labourer first. And I'm using the hide or Haid Great Lance. No, Haid Lance, not Great Lance, just the Lance. The one that we picked up on the way to Giant Lake Castle from the Haid Knight that was moping around in that pathway. And this one's infused. No, is it? Maybe it should be. I think it is. This one. Well, they've got a natural lightning infusion. Any Haid or Hyde weapon, and I know that I've infused this one with lightning to give it a stronger lightning effect. And its poke attack is very helpful. If you haven't got there's more enemies to take on in the corridor. I think there's like 3 more before these 2 guys up at the boss fog. And these 2 guys at the boss fog, they won't aggro, they want to stay in their little area and get you to come up there and fight them together. This is the summon for Grave Warden Agdane. I'm definitely going to be summoning him for the boss fight. We're actually going to go straight into the boss fight once we've taken these 2 guys out. So what I'll just basically describe the strategy before we do that. The boss is Velstead, the Royal Aegeus, the Royal Protector, and he is weak to lightning and magic and resistant to dark infusions and dark damage. So yeah, use gold pine resin or aromatic ooze, and I would recommend summoning Agdane. He's a good foil in the fight because he draws Velstad's attention away from you and allows you to get your hits in and whatnot. These Royal Guards with their halberds are quite annoying. They've got really good tracking for some reason. Like, not there, I mean that's a terrible example of tracking obviously, but when they raise that weapon above their head, you know, you roll away from it, you think you've rolled away from it successfully and you haven't, and they get you somehow. Yeah, I think I was going to say before I started talking about Agdane and Velstad and whatnot, that if you haven't got the DLC yet, it is definitely worth it. It's not particularly long in my opinion, but it's very good, very challenging, especially the main boss fights. And if you've played Demon Souls, the Aegeus's helmet should remind you of a certain NPC, Garl of Inland. Or Garl of Inland, how do you pronounce it? This guy's weapon is really impressive. It's basically a giant bell. And he's able... The Velstad has been corrupted by the dark. And I died the first time I took him on. I tried to heal and he smashed me with his giant bell and I died. There was nothing really interesting to show you, so I've not included it. I think this was my second attempt. So once he gets to once he loses a proportion of his health, he powers up and he casts some kind of spell that gives him this kind of dark aura. I think he takes less damage and he does more damage probably, just kind of like the way that some of these enemies do in Dark Souls when they power themselves up. So I've staggered him here. You can actually parry him as well. You can't get a riposte in, but you can parry him and it gives you a wee window to attack him. If you get far away from him, he can cast like dark hexes. He's not a particularly challenging boss in my opinion, but he's an interesting character design. So that was it. I wonder if that bell was the one that we used in No Man's Wharf. Soul of Velstad, defender of the king inside Undead Crypt. Velstad was always at the king's side as if he was the Lord's own shadow. After the king retired... Okay, so once we come down these stairs, we are going to encounter Vendrick. And I think this is great, this whole... what's... scene? That's not the word to use, but... the music, the heavy breathing, the sound effects from Vendrick's sword, the way he moves, all of that adds to the atmosphere in here, and the fact that Vendrick has lost his mind. It all plays into it. So we pick up, he's dropped his armour, he's stripped himself naked, just like people with, you know, things like dementia and Alzheimer's do, you know, if they're ill and they don't know where they are, sometimes they get in a confused state, and what am I talking about? He's been corrupted by the dark,
Use it to gain passage
and he's lost his
through
mind.
King's Gate, and venture to the far east. Bearer of the curse.
This is an interesting
If
line.
you are to be the next monarch, then one day you will walk those grounds without really knowing why.
So that's it portends to our future, us going mad and losing our mind. It's as if history, or you know, the future is preordained. What I would suggest is return to Agdane after you've picked the King's Ring up. The King's Ring allows you to open these doors where it says produce the symbol of the King. There's some things I need to get in here before the video ends. Vendrick currently has really high defences. You need giant souls to reduce those defences before you can kill him. You can spend the time trying to do it just now if you want, but it'll take a long time. If you're doing the DLC and you've completed it, come back here for a very interesting experience. Souls of Giants, that's what we'll get in the next videos, and the videos that are coming up. And then we'll be back to finish them off. Thanks for watching.